Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. So this is a news and notes catch-up, some things that happened in recent days I wasn't able to get to immediately, but we'll crack into it now. So the first thing, Daniel Dubois splitting from Mark Tibbs, the trainer he'd only recently linked up with and has yet to have a fight with. So they've parted company and he is going to go to Shane McGuigan. And I guess the question is, what happened? Why? What's been going on? The first thing I sort of thought about was, well, his fight's coming up in early June. Mark Tibbs had been away in the United States with Billy Joe Saunders. Was that a factor, that he wasn't getting the attention that he needed, that he wanted someone who could train him full-time, and that included in the period that Tibbs was in the United States? Or perhaps there has been some, standoff or, disagreement between the certain styles, or, maybe it just didn't gel as well as they thought it might. But I thought that Daniel Dubois and Mark Tibbs was going to be a good combination. And as well, Tibbs training Johnny Fisher, Dubois had access to good sparring as well. And he'd already been working with Johnny Fisher, and I'm sure getting the benefit of that. Big, strong, tough guy in Fisher, big puncher. But obviously he'll be going over to McGuigan. So I believe Lawrence Okoli is in that camp. So, there is some other sparring that he can actually get with McGuigan in his gym. But it is interesting that this has happened, the parted ways, even before having a fight. And maybe we won't get the full story on it, but something hasn't happened the way it was meant to happen, and they've parted company. So I'm interested in your thoughts on that. And for this fight, does it really make a difference? Bogdan Dinu, he's a guy who will give it a go for 3 or 4 rounds, who'll look decent behind the jab, but ultimately when things get tough, he sort of falls down and the fight's over. And I expect that to happen again with this fight. And actually, moving on to Bogdan Dinu. So he's enlisted the services of Big Pharmacy Miller. So Jarrell Miller, who would not go out to Bulgaria to fight Kubrat Pulev, is willing to go to Romania to spar Bogdan Dinu as Dinu prepares for Dubois on June the 5th. I guess how times have changed and circumstances, and Miller needs to go out there, needs must and all that to get a paycheck. But in terms of Dinu, so he says, I'm training in my home city, in my own gym. I have everything I need, and it's going to be really good with Jarrell. He's one of the most dangerous heavyweights in the world. He put a lot of pressure on, and that's good for me to prepare for this fight. It's an important fight, and I must win. And these two, obviously, Dinu and Miller, have fought, and there was a pretty soft ending in that one. So, going off past history, I think that's a good indication of what may happen here. As soon as times get tough, Dinu will quit. That's what I believe will happen. Either quit or get horrifically starched. But in terms of Dinu, he continues, I see a young heavyweight who likes to fight, but has only faced easy opponents. Well, I've got to stop right there, because Dinu, apart from when he stepped up to face the likes of Miller and also Kubrat Pulev, the resume is wafer thin. So Dinu says his only tough fight was against Joyce, and we saw what happened. You'll see the result of our fight, that his big reputation is exaggerated. He's promising to knock me out. He's just saying words because he hasn't met me yet. He will have a big surprise when he looks in my eyes, just as tall as he is, and not afraid of him at all. I'm going to be very well prepared and have a lot of surprises for this kid. Well, maybe Bogdan Dinu is taking some confidence from what Joyce did to Dubois, and perhaps other heavyweights in the division will also take confidence from that Dubois, if you move and circle and jab, you can have some success. And Dinu does have those tools, but does he have the heart, the stamina to make this actually a fight that goes more than 3 or 4 rounds? I think not, but interested in your thoughts on that. And actually, this press release actually came out. This was, today as I record this video, but because of the Dubois stuff with the split with Tibbs, I thought, well, actually, I'll just fold this in. The British Boxing Board of Control has announced that a purse bid has been held for a fight between Fabio Wardley and Nick Webb, and that was won by Eddie Hearn. So, see here on screen, it says, following the opening of purse bids, the above contest to be promoted by Eddie Hearn will take place on a date and at a venue to be advised. So this is a good fight, and actually I like this fight for both of these guys. And I guess one thing to address first, I know a lot of people thought that potentially this fight could be for the British heavyweight title, not the English heavyweight title that Wardley already holds, but Joyce, the holder of the British title, hasn't vacated. And he actually did say on social media, why does everyone think that I'm just going to be vacating, willy-nilly? I haven't said anything of the sort. And clearly they've decided, okay, well, we like this fight, Nick Webb and Fabio Wardley, let's make it. And in terms of the matchup, it's a sort of test that Wardley needs as a guy who's got roughly about 10 fights under his belt, and Nick Webb, who's coming back from a couple of losses in his career. He looked really good in his last fight against Eric Pfeiffer. He looked confident, and I think Webb is a confidence fighter, and he's a big puncher too. So if Fabio Wardley isn't on point, he could eat something and be in trouble. We saw against Eric Molina that Fabio Wardley was sort of playing with his food a bit, and ultimately it almost sort of came a cropper for him. He got caught with something. He was hurt. Ultimately, he sort of fought out of being hurt and stopped Eric Molina. But that was a hairy moment for him and a lesson, not to just, because there was a lot of feinting and posturing and not a lot of much from Fabio Wardley in that fight, admiring his own work. I think if he tries to do the same against Nick Webb and he gets caught with something, Webb, I think, has got dynamite in his hands, and we saw, the sort of impact he was having on Eric Pfeiffer. So I like this fight for both, because obviously for Webb, it's part of the way back. He can pick up a title, parlay that into something else. And for Wardley, it's that next step. And let's face it, Eric Molina is pretty washed, a husk of a husk. So this fight for me is better, provides more. And honestly, I don't want to see Molina again in a ring because he's dreadful. It's just that Wardley gave him an opportunity and almost paid off for Molina, but Wardley was able to sort of escape that sort of hairy situation. But Wardley Webb, once that's announced officially, I'll do a preview prediction, but I like that fight. I think that is a good fight. Oleksandr Usyk, so he had posted that there's sort of this 4 quadrangle type situation between him, Joshua, Filip Hrgovic, and Joyce. See here on screen, this was the post, and sort of saying the Bermuda Square in a new format. The IBF offered to hold a fight between Oleksandr Usyk and Filip Hrgovic for the title for the official contender. The WBO proposes to wait for Fury and Joshua to come to terms and then fight with Joyce. Who will Oleksandr Usyk fight with? Maybe it's time for the promoters and the sanctioning organizations to decide something. And bear in mind, this came ahead of the news that Deontay Wilder had got a decision in his favor for the arbitration with Tyson Fury. And it's been pretty clear to most of us that Oleksandr Usyk has been waiting. He didn't want to sign on for the WBO final eliminator until he knew what was happening with Anthony Joshua. He is the WBO mandatory, and by way of holding off and not sort of getting into anything, he could be the beneficiary and get that shot against Joshua, because certainly it is looking a little bit dicey that Undisputed is going ahead given the Wilder situation. As for Joyce, though, and Hrgovic, what happens for them next? Unclear. I guess maybe the IBF could look at Hrgovic and Joyce. Both are rated in the top 15. It's sort of one of those situations that they've offered it to Usyk, they've offered it to Parker, the IBF has offered it to Charles Martin, and I guess they'll just keep making their way down that list. And in terms of Filip Hrgovic, you can see here on screen, so he's in camp, sparring, training, all that sort of stuff for who knows what at this point, but in the gym, ready and waiting. He says, a little less conversation, a little more action, please. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud enough and hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.